Hi there, viewers. Today, I'm joining a conversation with author Chyrel J. Jackson, the author of Mirrored Images and other books that she has authored. It's quite a joy to have Chyrel featured on P English Literature today. Welcome on the show, Chyrel.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to finally have you on the show and have this conversation with you.
I'm excited. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah. So, Sherry, could you tell us about your book, Mirrored Images? How did this book come about? What inspired you to write Mirrored Images?
This is going back to 2020 when we were in the beginnings of COVID-19,
Mm,
and we were all facing lockdowns and we were in our houses because we couldn't really go out a lot.
mm,
And because of all of the sheltering in place that we had to do, my sister and I were taking care of our father who was dying of stage 4 prostate cancer.
mm,
So we were sheltering in place during COVID, and all we could do was write. And so that's what we did. So a lot of the poems from this compilation are written during the onset of COVID-19. That's really how this particular book came about. Of course, our dad subsequently ended up dying of his illness,
mm.
and he did not live to see this particular book, but I was reading the poems that I had written for him at his bedside as he
Oh,
was passing. So he knew about us working on it. He just didn't see it.
oh, wow. That's quite emotional.
Thank you.
Yeah. And I see that this is a co-authored book, like it's written by two authors, right? Could you tell us about your co-author and how you both come together to write it? I think I read something that you guys are six stars there about. Is that correct?
We are biological sisters, separated in age by 15 months. I'm
Mm.
older than she. I'm the older sister, but
Oh,
she is my she's everything I want to be. She is a magnificent writer.
wow.
And because I'm the older sister, I actually had written for many years. I was very public about writing. She was very secretive about it, and she just journaled and did not really, she was not a professed writer.
Oh,
But I had been writing, I've been writing editorial opinion pieces for politics. I've been writing poems for many years. I've written and drafted many book reviews for many years. I was just a writer. And, we have a blog. So I've written things on that. I've written things on other people's blogs. I've written things on other people's, I've been participating in other people's anthologies.
mm,
But my sister was a private writer. And I actually just discovered her journal.
oh,
And I was so surprised because I didn't understand, I did not know that's one of the things that she sort of kind of kept secret from me because we're very close. So she doesn't hide many things from me, but she didn't release, she didn't actually tell me, she didn't relate that she actually wrote. And Peter, she is probably a better writer than I am.
oh. That's quite lovely to know. I love the description of this part. Now, Sherry, I also see that you have another book titled Different Side of the Same Coin, a collection of poems. Yeah, for readers who haven't read the book yet and without giving much information away, could they have a sneak of what we'd expect picking up different side of the same coin?
Well, what happens with different sides of the same coin, that's the first part of our
Book.
continued story
Oh,
in mirrored images. So
oh,
different sides of the same coin is where it all unfolds. It's where you start to all of the characters that are introduced through our poetry and the poems that we're speaking about, our patriarch and our matriarch and our siblings, they all come back for mirrored images. It's a continued anthology of poems or compilation of poems, I'm sorry.
That's great. And at this point, I would love you to show the book to the camera. I don't know if you have copies there with you.
This is mirrored images.
Yeah, beautiful. Wow.
And my nephew did the cover for this.
I love the cover. It's beautiful.
Thank you. He did the artwork for that.
Oh, wow.
And the first book is
Different side of the coin.
different sides of the same coin. So it's the same girls are on. That's my sister and that's me. So we're on the covers of both books.
Wow. That's beautiful. I love the description and the look of both books. Now, Sherry, I want to ask you, as authors, we all have different ways of reacting to feedbacks and criticism of our works. I'm curious to know your opinion about criticism. How do you react to negative criticism of your books if you've ever had one in time past?
I take it all in. I tend to be very analytical, whether it's good criticism or whether it's negative criticism.
Yeah.
You can't better or become a better writer if you don't at least consider that there's something you can gain from negative criticism, just like there's a lot that you can gain from good criticism.
Absolutely.
So for me, negative criticism is definitely part of our journey as writers, because everybody's not going to get the same thing from reading your work.
Absolutely.
And so they're not going to take it in or absorb it the same way. Some people might see something that isn't there, that wasn't intended, but then somebody else might see something that the other person didn't get or something like that. So to me, writing and poetry, particularly poetry, that's much more subjective. That's much more like art. And not everybody is going to have the same palette. Not everybody is going to like the same types of art.
Absolutely.
I may prefer abstract art, and you may think that's the ugliest thing you've ever seen. So it's very subjective. It's a personal thing. And criticism is pretty much the same as that. If I can get something out of it that's going to make me better, then of course I'll use it, but you just can't take that personal.
That's great. I so much love your description of this part. I love your answer to this question about criticism. I just want to make me to ask you a question that just came to my mind. As a poet, in your own sense, in your own term, and in your own words, how would you define poetry? What does poetry means to you?
Oh, poetry. I love this question, because this question for every writer, but it all comes down to the same thing. Poetry is a rhythmic expression of the human experiences that we all share through culture, through history, and through language, the expressive use of language. The flow of it, the feel of it, the sentiment of it, the use of it, the emotion of language, the love of language. And that is what poetry is.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. I love asking poets that questions of poetry, as I kind of, like you said, but to my own person, I kind of think that everybody have a different understanding of what they consider poetry, what poetry means to them, because different things actually led us all to becoming a poet. So most times when I want to define poetry in my own form, I would say poetry is basically the language of the soul, the language of the poet's soul. And that has been my definition so far of poetry. That's why I love hearing other people, other poets' idea of what they consider poetry has.
Well, and it's expressed through our shared human experiences.
Absolutely.
Because no matter where you are in the globe, around the globe,
Mm,
love means the same thing. Pain
absolutely.
means the same thing.
Absolutely.
Grief, loss means the
Absolutely.
same thing.
I love that. I love that from you. All these things mean the same thing, irrespective of wherever you live, irrespective of your continent, the continent you reside in. They all
Wherever,
mean the same thing and they
right,
can be understandable and related.
exactly.
Wow, this is amazing. I love this. I'm also curious to know, Sherry, if you experience any challenges while writing your books. If there is any, could you share with us what challenge it is and how you ultimately overcame it?
Okay, the challenges. There are always going to be challenges when you write, even if it's just the internal challenges of writing itself.
Mm,
So there are always challenges. We had our different sets of challenges with the first book, but the books come together so organically and naturally because of what is going on around you in the world, what is going on with you as a person. So ultimately, the words inside of you have to come out.
mm,
And so books one and two were both works of what was going around us at the time. Book one was definitely more family focused,
mm,
but book two was more social dynamics of what was going on through the news with police shootings of unarmed civilians. So we have more of a social struggle of social justice and those issues that we write about in real time. Because when you're in mandates of sheltering in place with COVID running rampant
yeah.
and you can't go outside, the TV's on all day where you are. And
Mm,
so when my sister and I weren't taking care of our father and we weren't writing, we were looking at the news cycles and we were seeing a lot of violence, whether it be like in our politics with the insurrection of our capital, or whether it's in our neighborhoods where we
mm,
sometimes have to go through. It's just kind of all around you. So the challenges weren't with the actual writing of the book. It was just other emotional challenges of dealing with loss and grief because we didn't want to see our father not survive. You know what I mean? We wanted him to be here, but we had to take care of him.
absolutely. I love your description of your challenges and how you ultimately overcame it. It's really made for an interesting discussion. And this also want to make me to ask you another question that I've got. And apart from mirrored images and different sides of the same coin, do you have any other works you've authored or currently working on?
Oh, yes, we're all over the place, Peter. We actually appear in over 9 anthologies, nine
Wow,
poetry anthologies outside
beautiful.
of our two books that we're talking about today.
Wow.
And we are currently writing a third book, which is kind of fun. My sister and I. That's one that we really are like in a happy place. Um, we like who we are as people.
Mm,
And so when you like who you are as a person, your writing reflects that. So we're
absolutely.
excited about this third book because it's going to be our first two books were very large volumes of poetry.
Mm,
This as large. So we've scaled back a lot of the numerical number of poems, but put together, um, our audience is still going to get 100 poems from us, 50 from my sister and 50 from me.
wow, that's a lot. That's a lot. I love that. Now, could you tell us what publishing is like for a published author like yourself? What are the challenges you've encountered in terms of marketing your books What are the mediums people to like so far in promoting both books?
Okay. Uh, oof, marketing and promotion, that's where the real work comes in.
Absolutely.
That is where the real work comes in. To me, that is so much harder than just actually writing and releasing the work. The real work comes into because you're trying different things that exposes you to different audiences, new audiences that you want to make aware of your work. And like I said, the challenges, which were just unbelievable with both of the books, were COVID. And so then you're not able to go out and just be so social and go into all these places where you could pre the COVID days. I'm glad to
Yeah.
see it kind of returning somewhat now because we don't have to be so worried about masks and
Absolutely.
have to be so worried about just, everybody is worried about getting COVID anymore. So I'm glad to see it kind of going back to
Yeah.
that.
That's great.
That was the biggest challenge, Peter, the whole COVID thing. And so it made us have to kind of go do a lot of things virtually that we were doing in person prior to COVID. That was the biggest challenge.
Yeah, yeah, that's quite a challenge. I love your description of this part as well. Now, is there anything you love to share with the viewers about your books that we couldn't mention in this interview, and you'd love the viewers to know?
Well, we are, I would love for you guys to follow us on social media. We're everywhere. We write under a writing brand name of Sisters Rock and Rhyme. So Sisters Rock and Rhyme is how you can find us everywhere on social media. Sisters Rock and Rhyme is our website. It's our blog. It's our Twitter. It's how you find me on Facebook. It's how you find me on Instagram.
Oh, wow.
Sisters Rock and Rhyme. So if you could follow me that way, you will have access to where you can get our books, which are wherever books are sold online.
Yeah, that's great. I would have to attach a link to that where viewers can follow you. That'll be great, just so that people will love to catch up with you. Now, as a published author, what sort of advice do you have for other writers who are still struggling with publishing a book like yours? What do you tell people in this category?
The advice that I have is be authentic, be yourself. Don't listen to all of the outside voices that you hear from people giving you feedback and giving you advice. Sometimes we tend to lose ourselves listening to so much advice from everyone else. We want our books to look like this person. We want the cover to look like that person. Do what you feel, because when you listen to your voice, your book won't look like anybody else's, because you're listening to your own voice that you have inside.
Absolutely. Yeah. I love your advice. I love that. And I'm hopeful that viewers, including myself, would love to utilize it. Now, Sherry, tell us, where can viewers get a copy of your book in case we have people who would love to get a copy?
It's everywhere. You can get our books on Amazon. You can get our books via our website. You can get our books from Barnes and Noble. You can get our books online from Walmart. Wherever online books are sold, that's how you can get our books.
That's beautiful. And I've left a link in the description part of this conversation where viewers can get a copy of Chyrel J. Jackson's poetry book. So thank you so much, Chyrel, for coming on the show to talk about your book. It's a pleasure having you on the show.
It's good to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, it's great to have you.